Alright, so we are getting underway into one of these games in the Swiss tournament for the House Party Minor League. I don't remember the names of the two teams playing. I probably should take a look at that. You can tell I'm not very professional when it comes to this kind of thing. But we're going to spectate this little game, see how it goes. So what we can see so far, as I drag these into place, is that we've got Riven on top lane, Lee Sin in the jungle, Ziggs mid, Sivir AD carry with Morgana support for blue team. And on the red side, we've got something slightly different. We've got Vladimir in the top lane, I think, Vi in the jungle, Yasuo in the mid lane, and in the bot lane, you have Tristana and Thresh. So what stands out to me initially, coming from red side, is that you do have a good deal of champions to set up this Yasuo. You have the Vi lending her ultimate and even her Q to Yasuo's ult. In addition, though, you have Tristana's ult, which has been used as a setup for many silly combos involving a rocket jump into Buster Shot, setting up Lee Sin for his last breath, or Yasuo for his last breath rather, and Thresh his hook obviously, and his Flay as well. So you do have a good number of tools to set up the Yasuo, but you have a bit of a mismatch with Vlad in the top lane. Now what this signals to me is that red team, I feel like, wants to go late with this game. Yasuo and Vladimir are not known as particularly powerful champions pre-6 or early in the game especially. So they're looking to get that farm, get that CS, and really carry them into the late game. And I think they picked up this Vi not just for the synergy with Yasuo, but because she does have a very strong presence early in the game. So hopefully that can get these lanes ahead to a point where they can start surviving the early mid game to bring them into the late game where they feel like they want to have an edge. In the bot lane, this Tristana Thresh combo, in addition to being pretty safe, is good at snowballing objectives, as we've seen Cloud9 do in Worlds. This Tristana pick is very strong when it comes to objectives, which I think gives them something that many Yasuo teams lack. Reliable way to get towers down. I do see them struggling in wave clear overall, really having to rely on that Tristana, because Vladimir isn't really often going to be the central wave clear, often is going to be still pushing the side, and Tristana is able to supply that in some parts of the team, or take down a turret easily when they get to it. But I do think sieging and getting to a turret is going to be something red team struggles with, which is tough because one of Tristana's strengths is sieging, but it's also something that they really can't do with a Yasuo in the mid lane. However, blue team, they do have a lot more early game strength. They have Lee Sin, they have Riven, the fight going down here in the bot lane, and Morgana Black Shield prevents a lot of the stuff Thresh wants to do to Sivir, a lot of the early Sivir damage helping in this fight, because Tristana looking like it's going to be first blood for blue team, flashing out, but still Morgana gets the auto attack following through to pick up the kill. Now Thresh, can he survive this? He apparently can. And that is first blood for blue team. Now that's very good for blue team, not just because first blood is in and of itself a good thing. Unfortunately though, it does go on to Morgana, but it means that Sivir gets a real edge in this lane. Now this is tough because Tristana does have a very strong early game, but her mid game kind of falls back. So it's on you early game as Tristana to get ahead, and then you use that lead to survive the mid game. In the mid game, really all you can do is fight turrets, not really champions, and then get to the late game after that. The early game has to see you through the mid game, and it's tough to do if you're already behind. The double CS in the bot lane already, Sivir's doubling Tristana, she's one level up I think, which is just going to get worse as this laning phase goes on. Unless Vi can get down there and really get some work done, it's going to be tough. You'll note that Sivir bought double Doran's Blade, so she is going to have a lot more strength, but she isn't going to build into anything any faster than Tristana will. If these two champions earn gold at an equal rate, they will both hit their power spikes at the same time, so it's not that much of a lead. You have Lee Sin flexing his muscles top lane with the Riven. It's something you absolutely want to do. Riven can very easily set up a gank onto a Vladimir, because Vladimir is such a short-range champion. Risks a lot when he's landing against a Riven, because Riven can get in there close with her Qs and dashes and get a stun off, allowing Lee Sin to gank. Lee Sin coming in, trying to get this gank off on Yasuo, Yasuo able to dash out, and Ziggs doesn't have a ton of follow-up early on in this game, so Yasuo can be relatively safe there. I do think that Lee Sin should be focusing on this top lane. Vladimir does not have many tools to escape beyond his flash. Vladimir is already getting bullied out. Lee Sin probably has to camp his top lane to get Riven so far ahead of this Vlad to simply remove him from the game. Because if you don't shut down a Vlad, even something as strong in the dueling scenario as Riven won't be able to keep him down indefinitely. And that kind of split pressure is one of the things that can see red team into this late game. I do think red team is a pretty strong 1-3-1. Vladimir in one lane, Yasuo in another, with Tristana being able to set up on turrets, but Tristana, Thresh, Vi as a threesome isn't particularly suited to getting a tower down because Vi really as a champion wants to dive a lot more than she wants to siege a turret. Her kit really isn't suited to that kind of thing. She really wants to get in there and make a fight happen and murk a target and get out. She's really more of a pick-focused champion. But there is that 1-3-1 potential there. Lee Sin going for Stalker's Blade, obviously, to get those ganks rolling. Vi actually hasn't even backed for upgrading her jungle item. She really is power farming, probably to hit level 6 and then throw a gank onto the Ziggs in the mid lane, try and burst him out and get Yasuo snowballing onto his Ziggs. Because a snowballing Yasuo is something that's very tough for Ziggs to deal with, because he's still skill shot reliant. With the Black Shield, however, and with the Spell Shield, it's very difficult to get a gank off on a Sivir in this lane. Just so much protection against the CC they want to use. With Morgana's Spell Shield, it's very difficult for Red to actually get something good down onto them, because they don't really have a ton of magic damage to eat through it. It really has to be Thresh going in there and burning through to be able to get that. And even if they do burn through the Black Shield, anything the Black Shield would miss has potentially being Spell Shielded, so it'll be very difficult for Vi to get onto this bot lane. So, I think it's a smart move, what this Vi is doing, just power farming as hard as she can to her items, because she hasn't even backed yet. When she does her she's even on CS with Lee, and she hasn't even had to back yet, which is a pretty good thing overall. You have a gank going down in the mid lane, but can't really get much off. Vi is looking to power farm to 6 as quickly as she can and get a gank off onto Yasuo in the mid lane and get him snowballing. Yasuo, if he is ahead, is very difficult for a Ziggs to deal with, because Ziggs is a exclusively skill shot reliant champion. Not only can Yasuo just erase skill shots with his wind wall, he also is aggressively mobile in a way that's very tough for one of these not very mobile skill shot artillery champions to deal with. That's how I kind of think of Ziggs. He's an artillery champion. He doesn't move much, but he has a lot of range and can throw a lot of damage. I do think what is probably best for Lee Sin, though, rather than ganking bot lane, perhaps they want to snowball this lead into absolute dominance by Sivir, because she is ahead, but she's not dominating this Tristana. She really wants he I guess really wants to hammer that home by focusing the bot lane. But Thresh Tristana is a pretty safe lane that she can just play back and use lanterning Tristana out to save her, and if she's still in danger, she can then rocket jump, in addition to having flashes, although if he's burning them for these kind of aggressive plays, you won't have them to escape. Can he get Sivir? No, he can't. She gets out, so does Morgana, without burning either Morgana's or Sivir's flashes, or Morgana's exhaust, just burning the heal for Thresh's flash and exhaust. Not a very good trade. As far as summoner spells goes, Sivir, as you can see, is still up in this lane, although she has to buy the pickaxe, and she can't buy for the full BF sword. But like I was saying, there's a big mismatch in the power here in the top lane, between Riven and between Vladimir. And this is probably going to be like this for a long while, until Vladimir can really get his abilities going. Because Riven can so easily set up on this Vladimir with her stuns, it's very easy for Lee Sin to gank that lane. And getting that Riven to definitively snowball, rather than just softly winning the lane as she is now. She is very far ahead of this Vladimir, but it's not a definitive snowball yet. The lead she has not become a snowball, if you will. Lee going up there can absolutely do that. Just going in on the back of a stun, you have a ton of damage to lift Vladimir down. His only way of becoming invulnerable does a significant amount of his current health. On top of the Stalker's Blade Smite, this is absolutely a gank you should take, because even if Vladimir gets out, he has to burn everything, then TP back to lane. Meaning that Riven can now go all in on him, knowing he's flashless. Lee Sin can use his pre-existing incentive to get a Sight Stone, because he wants to get a Sight Stone for combat abilities. Yeah, you see, look at this. Vlad can't go up in that lane. To ward up their topside jungle, so Vi has to either babysit Vladimir top, meaning she can't be using her cooldowns on this mid lane just to keep Vladimir alive, or she abandons him to help out Yasuo in this bot lane. But if they do that, because of the wards in topside, if you see Vi isn't there, you can go there as Lee, take Vladimir, take a tower. Lee wants to do this, but because Riven isn't letting the wave push towards her turret, it's very tough for Lee to get a real gank off. And that is one of the redeeming qualities of the Vladimir-Riven matchup. If you're Vladimir in the situation, you accept that Riven is going to get massively up in CS, but also her harass is AoE because of the nature of her abilities, meaning very often Riven will find herself pushing you to your tower, meaning that unless you have a jungler who's willing to commit very aggressively to a dive onto your turret, you're never going to actually kill him or force him out of that lane because of kill pressure. Rather, he'll back for items or stuff like that. You're seeing that already. Lee Sin does not appear to be willing to commit to a dive in the tower, and as a result, even though Riven is ahead, it has not become a snowball, and Vladimir is still progressing towards his late game spikes. Lee has not really been a factor in this game as of yet. Yasuo is passively winning this lane. It's very difficult for Ziggs to kill him or anything of the sort because of the innate mobility of his kit and the way he can simply deny the concept of Ziggs' ability's existence with that wind wall. But here comes Lee. Okay, so he gets the kickoff. Perfect use of his abilities. Ward jumps in, gets the kickoff, Q to follow, executes him, done. Hopefully this should buy Ziggs the time to get back into this game. You can see he's gone for a tier, a stacking item, accepting the fact that he's going to be weak early, trying to outscale. I do think that Ziggs is an underestimated power in the late game. He does do a significant amount of damage. I do think though if they let this game go on too long, I fear for blue side. 1 second, I'll finish that thought, because you have Morgana going in here. She gets the full ultimate off, she gets the stun, she combos it into her bind, and Lee follows up for the damage. So you see Lee actually picking up a couple kills here. He's going to be able to get pretty powerful. The reason I worry, though, about what might happen if this game isn't finished up is because Red Team does have a pretty strong late game. Yasuo and Vlad are nothing to be reckoned with. But with Ziggs going for this more late game choice in the tier and in this stacking item, you're just driving the game closer to where Red Team wants the game to be. You're saying we're willing to take it late, and I think it's an error of Blue Team. I don't think they should be willing to take it late. Rather, I think they should be using the fact that Lee is snowballing, and the fact that Riven is, quite frankly at this point, putting Vlad in the dumpster, and the fact that Sivir is much more powerful than Tristana right now. They should be using that to aggressively force dragons, force towers, and try and get this game over with before it becomes unwinnable for blue side. But it doesn't seem that they're doing that, or at least Ziggs isn't helping that happen any more quickly by itemizing in that way. He isn't going for like early CDR in the form of an Athene's, or even, as many people do against Yasuo, double Doran's Ring into Armguard into an early Frozen Heart, or not Frozen Heart, sorry, Zhonya's Hourglass, to give you that armor and that ability power to make a difference in these fights without opening yourself up to too much Ziggs responses, or too much Yasuo responses. You do see Thresh going in here, but the Morgana Black Shield allows him to disengage very safely. You have Riven going for a very cooldown-centric build with the Brutalizer, rather than a Tiamat or any sort of sustain, meaning that she's trying to just murk Vlad down. You see Thresh going in. I really think this is over-aggressive. I think this is an unwise choice. You do get some good damage on. Tower shot taken. Thresh is almost dead. If Morgana had more mana, this would be a perfect time. Tristana goes in. Oh man. Okay, so the extra tower shot onto Thresh winds up being his death here because Tristana had already burned heal to save his life from that. Now she has to use ult defensively on Morgana. If Thresh had played that a little less ham, that would have been a phenomenal way that the red side bot lane got back into that game. That ult of Tristana, instead of using that on Morgana after the fight to save her life, could have used that more aggressively if Thresh hadn't been playing so far up and hadn't taken that much free damage. If that hadn't happened, then the extra health from the tower shot having not been done means that Thresh would not have died to the Boomerang Blade, meaning they could have picked up the kill on the Tristana and reset to safety, rather than having to ult Morgana away to safety. So that could have been something really good for Red Team. I do want to say, though, props to Red Side's bottom lane, because Tristana is managing to stay even in farm with Sivir, which is very good considering how far behind they were put beforehand. I think this means this is a rather strong bot lane for Red Team, because even though they were so behind from level 1 with the very early kill on Sivir getting an extra Doran's Blade in this lane, an extra level up on Tristana, still staying even and still being very close in this fight. I do think, though, that they have to keep that in mind more. Now, this Thresh is absolutely aggressive. Okay, they almost pick him up. Man, if Yasuo had been managed to pull off a last breath there, I think Ziggs would have been prevented from using his Satchel Charge to get out of there. Unfortunate, so close. See, red team in this mid and bot lane are so close to getting the ball rolling, which is something they desperately need because of the way in which Riven's dumpstering top lane. And Lee is very strong right now. He's got his mobility boots, meaning he's a very strong presence overall in this game. He's matched Vi for damage both with the Warrior and Chance. He's a full sight zone up. Not just in terms of combat stats is he ahead of his Vi, he's ahead in the ability to influence the map. Because the utility advantage you get by being a sight stone up is huge. You have Morgana flashing in with the ults. I don't think there's anything Shanna can do to live from this with the Lee kick flashing, and for the Sivir Boomerang Blade going through, you have Thresh managing to disengage as far as him and Yasuo are concerned, but you have Riven TPing down. Is she able to get the stun off on the Yasuo? She knows that these guys here can probably take out Thresh, although she does kill Steel with her ult. Some would say that she tunneled too hard on Yasuo, that she could have just turned on Thresh and made absolutely sure he was dead, but she trusted her team to take care of him, ulting for the damage to pick it up, because I do think her getting the gold is very good for blue team, and I think it's totally fine that she cast like that. I don't actually come to think of it, I like it. By chasing Yasuo up, he prevents Yasuo from playing down, meaning that there's absolutely no way red side can turn that, because you saw during the engage down near Dragon Pit, Vi's creeping along this side, looking perhaps to get a good ult off or get a good Q off, but Riven playing up here, forcing Yasuo back, means that even if Vi got a perfect ultimate, Yasuo wouldn't be in range to follow up. Because he wasn't in range to follow up because of Riven, Vi knew that even with a perfect ult, she couldn't go in. Opts not to go in, backs off, free dragon. So good play from Vi, I would say. You have some pretty good ward control. Let's take a look. So blue side's gotten pretty good vision here. This is good for protecting Sivir, who wants to push up onto this tower. Also means that when they took this dragon, it was relatively safe. You do have Thresh coming around here warding it off. I do think, though, you are lacking in vision on top side. Recognizing this, blue team is already moving to get wards into this area, I think, or is she just roaming down? I don't know. I think this is a bit of a mistake. I don't see what Riven can really add to in the situation, beyond just scariness of a strong Riven being there. These guys already had to back off in the face of these three people. Riven being there as well didn't add anything materially to the situation. And now you have Vlad able to come up here and get a full wave of XP, which is absolutely huge, because he's been supplementing his lack of farm here by going into the jungle and picking this up. Now because he's pushed up a bit, Lee is able to come here. He stops to fight the pink ward, meaning he absolutely cannot gank here, but he probably couldn't gank anyway because Riven walked around this way, meaning there was absolutely no way a gank could have been pulled off on this Vladimir. He's now got an arm guard and a gun and a revolver, meaning he's pretty safe in this lane. He can still absolutely be all in, but he can start to heal through some of the harass Riven is putting down and starting to be more of a presence in this lane. Look, he's now more willing to play up here. Now it's unclear whether or not he should, although I do think this is a kill onto the Riven. You have Vi here, ulting, yep, perfect. I don't see how she lives through that, although she does. I guess just the pure mobility. Yeah, the pure mobility of Riven allows it to happen. In the meantime, you have a fight going down here bottom lane. Okay, so you have red team going in, I think, but being turned on. They're just too far behind to actually make this kind of play. You have an absolutely completed... Wow, okay, as one person, this is very difficult to do. I'm also not really a play-by-play guy, so let's see how this goes. So, because this fight is here, we can surmise that red team engaged this, or blue team got position and forced them to walk into it. The reason that's the case is because blue team has no way of making red team come to them. Red team has to come to them of their own volition through Thresh, because Morgana is almost exclusively a defensive support where lane's concerned, her only offensive capability being either her flash ult or binding, meaning because this fight happens here, we can conclude that it was Thresh and Tristana, who do have the aggressively mobile abilities, who opted into that fight, but they were already so far behind. You have a full Infinity Edge to pieces and Berserker's Greaves. You're mixing in a Longsword, which doesn't even build into anything you'd want for the Infinity Edge, probably just into a... what? I guess it must be a Vamp Scepter. I don't know why you'd go for that over an Avarice Blade if you're going to interrupt your Infinity Edge build for anything. But she's got the Greaves, or the Greaves are just now, but she had the full Infinity Edge, and she was way far ahead in experience. In the top lane, you had Vi almost get out. But yeah, Riven totally got out. She wasn't killed at all. Lee and Riven managed to bait Vi into going near the tower. She was killed, she was picked up, and wasn't able to get anything off that. Vi is probably looking to build a Dead Man's Plate to accentuate the picks that Vi can make. A Dead Man's Plate is a very strong item on Vi, whether you go Cinder Hulk or Warrior, just because, one, the map mobility, but also your ability to be mobile aggressively as far as picks are concerned. You can just make picks more easily if you're running Dead Man's Plate. This might be Ziggs getting a kill on Yasuo. So yeah, this might be blue side. Okay, so Ziggs is going forward. He isn't able to quite get the kill because the kick might be his death. Okay, no. So the Lee Sin kick, I was worried for a second. That might have been the death of Ziggs, but with how far ahead Lee is, look, 303, roughly even CS. He is behind, but he's vastly ahead of Vi gold-wise. He absolutely can fight her off, and so she has to take out the Lantern. But Yasuo is very close to being able to deal with the Ziggs. I guess Ziggs just went tier into Arm Guard, which is a fine build. You have the mana from the tier to sustain with the early Arm Guard, because the reason early Arm Guard is generally not done against many melee matchups or AD matchups, and then they just opt for Morellos into Arm Guard is because you do lack in mana sustain. But with the early tier, he felt that he was able to manage his mana pool and go for the Arm Guard before finishing a mana regen item, which I do think, if you can play that way successfully, is likely optimal, because you get your Zhonya's, full Zhonya's, far earlier, which just adds so much utility and safety to your champion, even though you might lack a little bit in CDR, which is something that Ziggs has to be careful about, because you are very CDR reliant to do your damage. Your damage is not burst combo of abilities, it's cycling through your spell reel as fast as possible, a lot like Lux. Because that's the way in which his kit operates, CDR is just so good for him. I do think choosing not to go for it does limit Ziggs in some way, but I do think this is a safer alternative when it comes to him personally. And against the Yasuo lane, that's probably all his team needed him to do because of the way in which bot lane and top lane were winning. So, all in all, this is now a very handsy lead for blue team. You have Riven absolutely dumpstering this Vlad. Lee is far ahead of Vi. The mid lane is the only place I would say it's close, but I do think Ziggs still has an edge because a lot of his damage, because of its AoE nature, even if it's targeted at Yasuo, can still hurt teammates. The reason I value AoE damage is because the way in which it can be spread across 3 or 4 members of a team is a net huge damage value, right? Because Zed's ult does, for example, does tremendous damage to one person. Ziggs ult does way less damage, but way less damage 5 times to 5 people, perhaps, could be more damage. I think you get a lot more out of your AP when you're able to hit multiple people, which AoE allows you to do. So, because he has got the tier into a full NLR item in the form of the Arm Guard with the pen on his boots, and I presume he's going for an early Void Staff or building into a Rabadon's, they're able to do a good chunk of damage, which is all his Riven needs to complete the AoE. Because Riven's AoE chunk down a team, Ziggs can follow up on that, Sivir AoE people down with their boomerangs and everything. It's like a very good AoE comp coming into fruition from blue team. They're spiking at just the perfect times, they're 8k gold up at 23 minutes. It would be very difficult to imagine a red team coming back from this. I do think that it's possible red team does win if blue team is unable to end the game before Vladimir hits 3 items, or Yasuo hits 3 items, or Vi becomes tanky enough to reliably start these fights without being insta-gibbed. That red team can win. And they can do that, I think, because they have all the pick tools that you need to get back into this game. Thresh and Vi as a pair are very good at enabling picks. Thresh because he can follow up his CC onto someone Vi is holding in place, but also because when he goes in, he can take a teammate with him in the form of his Lantern. Tristana can follow up as well by jumping in forwards, meaning that... Oh, and if, like, let's say Vi ults someone. Yasuo can jump to where Vi is immediately with his ult. Thresh can hook onto where Vi is and go to it. And he can pull, let's say, Vlad with him. And Tristana can jump forward as well. They have a good ability to show up wherever Vi picks someone, which is absolutely key. Although, blue team drafted phenomenally. they have the Morgana ult, which means if they can see Vi, see the pick coming, and then respond with the Morgana ult to whoever is being ulted, they can absolutely prevent red team from executing. They do get a good shutdown onto this Riven, goes on to Vi, which is pretty good. She's able to finish out her Dead Man's Blade. I do think, whoa, okay, red team being very hypey. So it's easy to look at a score like this and say red team is playing too aggressively. But all of the fights they've been taking have been so close that it's easy to see why their gut would tell them to go in. Although now Sivir has shown up. Look at all the AoE from Ziggy that I was talking about, getting that damage onto 3 or 4 people. Even though they flash out, Sivir flashes up and gets the auto. The static shift almost takes out another person too. They should be able to chase down this Vladimir because the Dead Man's Plate is just so good for chasing and take him out. Vi should be able to finish up her Dead Man's Plate because of the shutdown they got onto Riven. However, blue team just got a fantastic 3-for-1 trade. They're phenomenally ahead. They should take at least this turret here, and perhaps a little more. It's very difficult for me to picture red team winning this game. I do think they have the tools to. They have the tools to get picks, removing a person from the map, and then 5v4 preventing blue team from taking towers or anything like that. But if blue team controls vision, as to be fair, they haven't been doing a phenomenal job. If you look at red team's jungle, you only see 2 or 3 blue team wards in it. But if they can control vision, they can prevent red team from executing those picks. And I think it's absolutely something they should prioritize, because red team's picks are the only mechanism of red team getting back into this game. As Morgana or as Lee Sin, as the ward supplying members of the team, you have to recognize that that is red team's win condition. Red team's win condition is using their pick process to get the game to go late, and then using this late game power to manhandle blue team when it comes to that point. So you have to recognize that as a supportive player, and then ward up and prevent them from executing on that. So that when Vi goes in and you see the marker on whoever she's ulting, you Morgana shield that person. Yasuo can no longer follow up. This Vi can be bursted down. She only has a Dead Man's Plate and Merc Treads. Against the ridiculous amount of damage blue team is able to dish out at this point in the game with these champions, with this lead, that's a death sentence for Vi. So no longer is it a pick red team is executing on blue team. In a way, it's a pick blue team is executing on red team by baiting her into a situation in which she is out of her depth, so to speak. I think that has to be the way blue team plays this game if they're to play it safely and ultimately prevent red team from getting back into this game. We see blue team posturing for dragon, which is fine. Getting dragon is good. I don't think it is the most productive objective to be pressuring at the moment. I think they can start throwing pinks down and controlling dragon, forcing red team to fight them there, which red team cannot do. Red team absolutely cannot fight blue team right now. So they can start the dragon dance and say, fight us. If you don't, we'll wreck you. We'll put Riven in the spot lane, or in this mid lane. You can put Riven in the mid lane and say, if you go to her, we'll take Baron. If you fight us at Baron, not only will we win that fight, but Riven can show up. So it's not a 4v5, right? So red team can't necessarily fight at Baron. They can try and push them off. I don't think they have the poke to do that, though. They can't poke red team or blue team off Baron. So you either say, fight a suicidal fight with us at Baron, or try and collapse on the Riven and prevent him from taking the inhib, which they probably would do. They'd probably kill Riven. But then blue team would pick up the Baron, and the lack of wave clear on red team would be a death sentence. With Baron right now, there would be nothing red team could do to prevent blue team from walking up to one of these inhibs and taking it out. With Ziggs, you can wave clear phenomenally quickly. You have a fight going down, but I don't think there's anything red can do. They actually are able to take lead. Yasuo goes in, isn't able to pick up the kill, just barely got enough damage. They do manage to pick up the Riven somehow. Into the back line goes damage, but they barely alive. Okay, so it's all in all a 3-for-2, which I think is better than expected coming out of red side. I wish there was a second caster here, one who was accomplished at play-by-play to really supply that. But you have blue team now rolling up on this inhib and taking it. Bot inhib, as many people know, is the perfect inhib to take if you are planning on contesting Baron. Dark Shield, Black Shield rather, managing to prevent anything from being done to Sivir. She is just so much damage that they're able to just fight this, and they're going for the second inhib. I think they can take this, but this is it's greedy. It's very greedy going for both of these, but they know they absolutely can do it, because even if Vi and Yasuo home guard over, Sivir is so huge that they can still fight it. Burning the flash there, preventing Flash from doing anything. Blue team is going to be able to run. The only way I think red team can win this is if they do Baron right now, because these three members of blue team almost have to back. Given that's the case, they could do Baron, but now that I think about it, no, because Lee and Riven are both back on the Rift, and I think both do significant damage. If red team were to go onto Baron, they could fight them off. So I think the red team's lack of wave clear inflates the value of Baron for blue team. Given the extent to which blue team's ahead, I think they should go back, buy wards, buy pink wards, and set up shop here. Set up shop around Baron. Like a pink ward here, pink ward here. You don't even need a pink ward in the pit, because if they come, like, if you warded this area, there's no need to pink the pit because you can see them coming. And if you see them coming, just back off and let these push. And when they leave, just go back on Baron. It doesn't matter if they see you, because there's nothing they can do about it. So ward up this area, prevent red team from getting in on it, and do Baron. And once you do Baron, just end the game, or take top inhib and then end the game, because red team has no meaningful way of clearing a wave. Yasuo and Vlad, sure, they perhaps could do a lot of AoE damage, but they have to get almost in the minion wave to actually do it, and if they're getting that close to you, you can kill them. The only thing they have is Tristana, but that's nothing in comparison to the Ziggs, who can wipe out your waves instantly, and with Baron buff, the resiliency of your waves is vastly inflated compared to normal. Baron is a death sentence to red team. Going for the pick on the Vi, burning her flash for nothing is totally fine. You did, I think, burn Talisman, but that's totally fine to burn. Okay, they notice this, they go on to Baron. I don't think there's anything red team can do if blue team plays this intelligently. They might just be able to burn it down before red team even gets there. Alright, so red team's moving in. You see them warding over. They have absolute vision of Vi. She wants to go in for this deal. You see Vlad coming around, just a ton of damage. Vi going in. Everyone's here, but the massive AoE damage from Ziggs is huge. A ton of people low on blue team, actually. Vlad's damage is just huge. Baron, 6th member of blue team, it seems, but they're all very low. They can no longer continue this dragon. Imagine if this game were closer. Imagine if red team had been farther in this game. Imagine if they hadn't taken so many risky fights earlier in the game. Like, there are so many fights that went barely to blue team early on in this game that allowed them to get this lead they have. Imagine if they were even on gold. Red team would be doing so well, but as it stands, they're not able to pick up anything, and they're just increasing the lead blue team has. And they lost a Nexus, 2 Nexus turrets. Riven came back here to try and X-Peke. She managed to pick up the Tristana, but I don't see her. Okay, here comes all of blue team. Even though they're low on health, they managed to win the game. It's exactly what I'm saying. Playing around Baron is the key to winning. Taking the fight is a win. Taking the Baron is a win. Well executed by blue team. But you saw just how close those last few fights were, just how low blue team was across the board. Imagine if this game was closer. There were so many instances earlier in the game where red team went for something over aggressive, or pushed a little too hard to try and make something happen, only to come up just a little short. If they had eased off the gas a bit and played more safely, this gold lead would be massively smaller. You don't have to get crazy things done as a member of red team to win this game. You just have to allow the game to go long enough. I think they tunneled on getting their members fed, knowing, of course, that if they were fed and if they had enough items, they would steamroll blue team. But that clouded their judgment and led them to make plays that were over-aggressive. And being aggressive is fine, but being over-aggressive is just being a detriment to your team. This game could have been a real nail-biter, but I think red team just needed the patience to just let their comp scale up naturally. Babysit Vladimir in the top lane instead of trying to get crazy things done in mid lane, for example. Well played by blue team. Good luck. I hope the Swiss bracket works out well for both of these teams. They both played it very well. GG. GG.